welcome to my newest Nurture Your Health video. Um, and this is relating to digestion. I know it may not sound hot or exciting or sexy. When you look at most chronic illnesses, somewhere something isn't working right, the body doesn't get what it needs, and then you have problems. Even all the research I've done on genes, and people say, well, I guess it's just me, my genes to get something, or it's not my genes to get something. You know, it's more the lifestyle and what you eat and the nourishment decides whether you're going to turn on genes or turn off genes. So you may have genes for a problem, and it may not show up at all if you're eating well. And you can be eating well, but if you're not digesting what you're eating, you're not really getting much out of it. So a lot of problems today, a lot of medicines and drugs are taken, you know, just to the counteract effects of something that's not really being how they should. So I just sort of asked to remind you at this point, if you like this or want to see more of these things, because I do a couple more. I mean, they're not hot because most people don't look for their medical advice by YouTube videos, but there's a lot of experience behind them. So I would like to share with people, and if a few people, if I could save thousands of dollars and years of their life, sure, it's worth it. So this is time to remind you, if you'd like to hit the subscribe button, please go ahead. And if you like it or like the other ones, go ahead and hit that also. So you go forward a bunch of years into the 70s when, living with other people, we thought we'd be vegetarian. And there was the book on tofu. It sounded like a really great thing. Yeah, and it's like most of what Americans eat were a lot of meat, a lot of hot things, and it wasn't always a perfect thing. Later learning about like Chinese and other diet, there's balance of hot and cold. So if you're eating too many hot foods, cooling may be wonderful. If you're eating too many cold foods, you may chill out, your digestion may not work too well, and something warmer and nourishing might be helpful. So at that time, tofu was a big thing. We bought a grinder, we made our own tofu, had it maybe a couple times a day. You know, and yeast was a big thing, so supposedly had B vitamins and other good stuff. So we were adding yeast to everything. And, you know, that seemed like it was supposedly the healthy thing. Now later there was a lot of books after I graduated from acupuncture school. You'd read about, you know, this woman had a problem, so they went to this specialist, to that specialist, to that specialist. Finally, they sent her to a psychiatrist. They weren't able to really help her a whole lot. So then they went to the doctor and said, oh, you have a yeast imbalance. Your bacterial isn't out of bounds, so there's an overgrowth of yeast in your system. So cut out sugar, cut out wheat, cut out sweet things, and wow, they feel better. It's amazing. All the things are better. All these problems severe just seem to clear up at once. So that seemed like the big thing. Of course, if you're a practitioner and you help a few people with that, they say, oh, you're one of those guys that just tells everyone they have a yeast problem. So actually I wanted to find ways to find out when people didn't have a yeast problem, and I worked with energetic testing and stuff, and that would be good. But for a lot of people, it would be like a really major change in their life to know what was making them feel bad. Of course, some people didn't care. They're so addicted to certain foods. There's an addictive allergic cycle. They're going to eat them no matter what. And they'll be pissed if you say anything else. But that's just, you know, that's just life. So how did the digestion come out of this? I think in the other video I talked about skin problems. And yeah, the guy said, you know, do these strong steroids, you know, they'll help get your skin better. But steroids tend to suppress everything. So after a while I would get sick. And how was I sick? Well, I might get chronic diarrhea. I might lose a couple pounds in a day or 5 pounds in a week and have to go many times. And that meant I wasn't getting the nourishment I needed, so every month I'd get sick for a week. And usually I'm really hardy. I'd get the high Sierras, cross-country skiing or stuff. But then I just barely have the energy to walk to go to work or so. You know, the one time I was trying to eat my healthy diet and sick, and then I went off, did go cross-country skiing in the high Sierras, 9,000 feet, eating more American healthy food, not the fast food stuff, and I felt great. I was active all the time. So there was something more than just that. And, the Western tests, well, they seem like they were developed in a concentration camp. They seem torturous, like I wouldn't really want to wish them on anyone else, but I'd try what was out there. And finally, I saw some doctors that meaned well. They just didn't know what to do, and they tried well. I did the tests, and finally, I was saying, okay, they do it. One test that showed amoeba, so they do flagell. 2 of them, maybe 3 times a day, 6 a day. Usually they do like 2 or 3 a day. And after 10 days, and I'm feeling pretty miserable, I felt better. But then I didn't feel so good, and the guy said, well, let's do another test. And it was this or that, and it was the other one. Well, the amoeba antibodies, it's an antibody test, could have been there from that time when I mentioned traveling through Asia, when I probably had amoeba and my body developed antibodies for that. So it wasn't necessarily saying that I had amoeba, it just said that I had antibodies. But the thing was, okay, we're going to do you 2-3 times a day for 20 days. Well, I was a little scared of that, knowing how bad I did. And what would happen is you're supposed to take it with food. Well, I would detest the thought of eating. And finally, it was just a point after a while where I would just spontaneously throw up when it was time to take it when I take it. I couldn't handle it anymore. My body would just refuse that stuff. And then I saw a specialist, a good doctor for internal medicine, and she said, I don't eat meat, but you need to eat some meat. And it's like, to me, that was like an alcoholic has to hit low to really do something. And yeah, I was in a restaurant and I'd get a meal and I'd eat and I just started throwing up on the table. I mean, I was just totally out of control. That was the low where I decided, okay, I'm going to do what it takes to get better. And that was some point made a change in my life. And there's some guy signed holistic doctor, osteopath. So I went to see him, and it was like functional medicine now where they have a whole lot of tests for everything, Then, 35 years ago, it was like maybe $350 to detect some food allergies, another couple of dollars to assay your minerals and your blood and vitamins to see, if you're deficient in things. And, standard things came up, but at least it gave me some idea. And I did find before that there's an antihistamine called Actifed. And if I took that, I'd feel great for about 5 hours or 5.5 hours. You're supposed to take it every 6 hours. And then I started seeing double and going weird. But it didn't mean that was the solution. It just meant that was the diagnosis. There was food allergies. There was food sensitivities, and I need to clear them. And what was normally recommended is, it's called the rotation diet. You don't eat the same thing more than once every 4 days, and then your body doesn't react too much to it. And one, it can be very powerful, but later as a practitioner, it was so hard to follow. I didn't want to have to tell other people to do that. I knew I needed to find a better way to deal with my problems. So I did work on that, and I did come up with, I found, it's better solutions. So I did do the rotation diet for a long time, and sometimes it's hard. I went to New York and reading all the menus in the restaurants, and gee, I had this 2 days ago. I don't want something with too many things in, or I won't be able to eat those for a few days. So it was not an easy thing to do, but it was empowering to travel and not be sick, not have chronic diarrhea, to have energy to do things, and enjoy life. So I really did have to make some changes, but as I said, I didn't want to really incur that to other people. But it was like out of the 150 things I was tested for, I reacted to 90. And I said, well, what can I eat? Well, the things I hadn't had in a long time were things like sugar or milk or cream. So I said, oh, you can eat ice cream. That should be good for you. It actually was. It's like the opposite of usually when you see people. Oh, don't do sugar, don't do dairy. But if you haven't had it, I could eat a quart of that, and it was good. It was nourishing. Although it's not what I usually recommend people to do, but it just shows that sometimes you have to individualize things for yourself, and knowing that things can be nourishing that might not otherwise be what you'd want to eat. So yeah, I worked through that, and when I started acupuncture school, I had someone work with me, and we went through dowsing and got a perfect diet that should help me, and I'd prepare my own food. It's hard with other people, so I'd be sort of a demanding person, not wanting to eat certain things because they were on the list. And how much it was later, it's hard to tell. I know later, many years later, I went to a Valentine's Day dinner at a Japanese restaurant, and some of what we had, you know, it was a very familiar thing, it was very tasty, but my body felt some of the same experiences, and there's all an MSG thing, and a lot of soy things and yeast things, and all those are strong MSG things. So some of what I had could have been an extremely strong MSG reaction to things. So I want to say, even though sometimes, yeah, you know perfectly what's going on, sometimes you really don't. Sometimes there is more going on than that. But what I want to say though is, you know, the diet, some foods just aren't bad. But when I go back to, like, I look at that time when I traveled overseas, 1968, and I drink Coca-Cola. Well, water has been horrible, so hopefully it was filtered, but it was sugary, and they were smaller bottles, not like the big ones, but still having 12 of those a day certainly ain't good. I mean, I probably haven't had one in over 40 years, maybe more, you know, and it's just something that I don't do. But there's a time when I do that, and all those sweet things will feed all the bugs, feed all the organisms and stuff, and they will create lots of problems. A lot of it is the environment that you have, the internal environment. If you get that healthy, you can handle a lot of things and do well. But if that's not healthy, you can eat food. Some of it's good food, but you're not going to get the nutrients out of it. It may just be the expression, another brick in the wall. I mean, it's just things that are just stressing you out and making you feel not so good. So one thing that I did find out, as I mentioned before, a lot of the herbs for clearing skin problems were very microbial and anti-yeast and very fungal. Sometimes when I'm sluggish, just taking some bacterial herbs will help me feel better and I'll get more energy again. And so I think I might, and there's a lot to say more about that, and I think what I will do is stop here, and the next one I'll talk about allergies, and then I will get into more like things like probiotics and other herbal things and other ways of dealing with things. Because a lot of things that they're missing, your body's just not going to do well, and if you have them, then you could benefit from all the other good things you're doing and live a better, happier life. And so I hope you got something out of this, and I'll continue and get on to other phases of digestion in the next video.